Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Food School Smarter, Stronger, Leaner podcast. Adventures of one obsessed nutrition coach on a mission to create a world where food makes you better. Today is Tuesday, guys, and each Tuesday we are doing deep dive on nutrition. But today we are talking not about nutrition specifically, but about not eating certain amount of time during your day, not eating certain foods in order to prolong our life, in order to be healthier and help our body to recover, restore, recycle, those fundamental processes of a healthy body maintenance that I like to call them, that in our modern environment, in our modern food environment, where you are advertised to eat better and frequently for one reason or the other, most of which have non-scientific proof whatsoever. So we are talking about restricting the amount of meals we eat, the time of the day when we eat, certain nutrients. And I work with clients with different diet pasts and presents, and people come to me for health and nutrition coaching, for fitness coaching, to change how they look, how they feel, to resolve some health issues related to our lifestyle. People come to me with different diet backgrounds. Some people want to do keto, some people want to go vegetarian or vegan, some people just don't know anything about nutrition, and that's totally normal. But what I notice these days more frequently is that more and more people are coming to me with the very not really that healthy and not really great habit of eating many times during the day, because some time, and even now you can hear from a lot of sources actually, they heard that eating frequently is beneficial for you. And of course, eating more frequently is more pleasurable than non-eating. And that's why people come to me and they're like, yeah, I'm ready to not eat carbs, to not eat meat, to not eat plants, to not eat dairy, to not eat lectins or gluten or whatever have you. There are so many diets these days. Then when we start talking about actually limiting the amount of meals people are afraid. They just got so scared that they're gonna starve if you don't eat for like a couple of hours. That is actually pretty funny, because the way our food industry is right now, when you can basically have food anytime you want, in any amount you want, that was never the case. It's only our present for maybe a couple of decades or so. Before that, it was breakfast, lunch, and dinner if you were lucky. If you were not, you would have less meals. And yes, you can have everything these days and anytime, but should you? And so the recent book, it came out, I think, either just recently or maybe a month ago. The Switch, ignite your metabolism, not ignore your metabolism. Ignite your metabolism with intermittent fasting, protein cycling, and keto. So for those of you guys who are not familiar with the term of intermittent fasting, it's basically what people mean when they say intermittent fasting in most literature these days. It's basically limiting the amount of meals you have, the amount of hours when you consume food. So for example, my intermittent fasting, it's called OMAD, or 1 meal a day lifestyle. So I eat once a day, and literally for the rest of the day I eat no calories. I can drink water, I can drink non-caloric tea, non-caloric coffee, so basically black coffee, some herbal or green tea, some water. That's what I consume. But it's not about me, it's about the book. So the book kind of gathered together all the recent studies and science and practical implementation of the principles of fasting or restricting certain nutrients with the purpose of prolonging our life and staying healthier while we are alive, staying more capable, full of energy, helping our body to do this work of recycling and then rebuilding. Now, a lot of people's diet are great on the rebuilding side. So when you consume nutrients, when you don't restrict any nutrients and you have abundance of all sorts of nutrients, your body builds stuff, all sorts of stuff, cells and bones and tissues and organs and skin, and it's good. And your body doesn't need to do that. But in order for our body to live long and stay healthy, our body also needs to do a lot of cleaning, recycling, and taking the rubbish out. And that does not happen if you're eating all the time. That does not happen if you have the abundance of nutrients all the time. And that might be even more important than the building part. Maybe not, I can't say that cleaning stuff is more important than building, because if you're constantly cleaning and have nothing to build with, then you're also not going to be prosper and not going to live too long. That's why there is such a term as malnutrition, or not getting enough nutrients, not getting enough nutrition. But most of the world, with the rates of obesity and diabetes and heart disease and all the other lifestyle diseases, of which cancer might also be one of the diseases. So with all these diseases skyrocketing, the problem of our society is not malnutrition for the most of the world. We have the areas in the world that are malnourished, but not so many of them. And if you are listening to this podcast, that is not you. And so the book is about helping our body to recycle, to take the garbage out, to repair itself, and to implement those strategies that help our body to do that. And those strategies are, if I were to sum up this book is about fasting, intermittent fasting, or basically limiting the amount of meals you have, and what most importantly, the amount of hours when you consume any nutrients, because only when you don't consume those nutrients, your body can start the recycling job. But the book is not just about intermittent fasting, it's also about limiting nutrients, be that calories or the amount of food you eat beyond your needs, be that amount of carbohydrates to produce certain changes in your blood glucose and other blood sugar related like metrics and hormones like insulin. It's also about decreasing the amount of protein, especially and specifically probably animal protein, because it's really hard to overdo plant protein unless you supplement a lot. So it's reducing the amount of protein. It's also reducing amount of oxygen that can be induced by exercise and by certain breathing practices. The book is about those processes that I just talked about that help us to help our body to recycle, repair, take the garbage out. And when I coach a lot of people, a lot of negative effects like weight gain, like increased inflammation, the lack of energy, a lot of different metabolic issues, a lot of health, I'm not sure how to say it, a lot of things that breaks down in our health. A lot of those things, they go away by themselves when you start continuously practicing those restrictions. And so this book, for example, The Switch, that is written by James Clement with Christine Loberg. You can find it on Amazon. That's where I found it. Ignite Your Metabolism with Intermittent Fasting, Protein Cycling, and Keto. So the book is a practical implementation of those strategies, limiting the amount of meals you have, the amount of hours when you eat, limiting the amount of carbohydrates, of calories, of protein, and all of these factors that they help your body to start recycling and taking the garbage out, increasing autophagy, the term that you can also hear quite often, that is basically self-eating and recycling. And so all these practices, they help your body to recycle in order to get rid of dysfunctional elements in our body, in order to build new stuff without having to deal with old and dysfunctional stuff, in order to make our body, all the mechanism work and function properly. The science of autophagy and how our body does all the recycling, all the taking the garbage out, all the cleansing, all the cleaning, the science is just emerging. But from all the science, we can see that if you're interested in the most energy, in the most longevity, in the most usefulness, in the least amount of diseases like heart disease, like diabetes, like metabolic disease, like high blood pressure, like all sorts of brain disorders, like Alzheimer, dementia, like all of these can be improved, sometimes reversed, sometimes even healed or prevented for sure when on a regular basis you implement restrictions. You can implement the hours when you eat. You can implement restriction of the hours when you eat. You can restrict your carbs, your calories, your protein. I personally, my personal practice, to give you an idea what it can look like, I limit the hours when I eat. I limit the amount of carbohydrates I eat. I limit the amount of calories I eat on a regular basis. When it comes to protein, I don't necessarily limit it really. I'm someone who you consider to be on a high protein diet, but you gotta consider that I eat my protein only once a day. And I'm not sure what part of it is metabolized properly, but I think I do have more benefits because I eat it only once a day. And also all of my protein comes from, most of it comes from eggs and fish and plants, of course, but mostly eggs and fish. And it's proven that those proteins coming especially from fatty fish, from cold-blooded, animals, and from eggs, they are of much better quality when it comes to longevity, recycling, and detoxing and cleansing. So if you choose, that's why when the book says, limit protein, a lot of times it refers to limiting red meat protein, not limiting all of the protein. And so getting back to my practice, so I eat once a day. Usually it's a lot of non-starchy vegetables, colorful and green, broccoli, spinach, bell peppers, carrots, some berries here and there. My carbohydrates are usually less or somewhere around 70 grams with fiber and everything. There are no added sugars, no processed foods whatsoever. And then most of my protein comes from fish and from eggs. Now these days I'm incorporating also vegan days when I consume no animal protein whatsoever. So I eat once a day things like nuts and seeds, salads, healthy fats, greens, and I eat once a day and then I stop eating. And so on most days I limit a lot of things, but then there are days, and these books talks about it, you cannot be in a stage of constant limitation of nutrients and things. You also need to give your body at some times abundance of nutrients, abundance of protein, abundance of carbohydrates, hopefully not from processed junk, but from actual whole foods, like more vegetables, maybe more starchy vegetables, maybe more fruit, maybe more nuts, maybe more seeds, etc. There should be time when your body gets more protein than it needs, and in my personal practice, it reflects that too. That's what I notice when I notice I function the best, when I limit all these things, but then once or twice a week I get abundance of all the whole foods that I care for, as much as I want, calories, protein, and everything. The only rule I have is that food should be of the best quality, be that protein or be that carbohydrates from fruits and vegetables. Whole foods, the best quality, but as much as I want. And like the way I look, the way I feel, all my lab tests, they just keep getting better. And so the book, it talks about the same thing. You gotta limit a lot of things most of the time, but then at certain stages and you got to figure out your own schedule. You got to bring back all the nutrients. So you can't be constantly in ketosis, you can't be constantly vegan, you can't be constantly in caloric deprivation state. That actually brings negative health effects. And so the practical side of things today, guys, well, if you are interested in deeper analysis of all these processes, metabolic processes of self-regulation, self-rebuilding, recycling, autophagy, intermittent fasting, pick up this book, The Switch. It's a great book to get you started, by James Clement, available on Amazon. Ignite Your Metabolism is intermittent fasting, protein cycling, and keto. There is also a plan how to practice all of that. By the way, guys, exercise is also a huge recycling and autophagy mechanism, and it's also talked in the book. Exercise helps your body to recycle, helps your body to distract the cells that don't work and other things that don't exactly work in your body. So exercise is a practice for people who want to live long and young too. But on the nutrition side of things, to give you some practice, you need to look at your nutrition, guys, and you need to start implementing all of these practices at least some of the time. So time of eating, or practicing something like intermittent fasting and having fewer meals, not more meals. Restricting your carbohydrates, restricting your calories on some days, restricting your oxygen by doing strength training or sprinting that also induces oxygen deprivation on a cellular level. Reducing your protein, and specifically protein from red meat, from dairy products. Those seem to be the most not beneficial to your longevity and recycling, but instead, going for fish, for eggs, going vegan on some days. So restricting your protein, restricting your calories, restricting your carbohydrates, restricting time of eating. Figure out a way how to build a plan so you implement those restrictions on a regular basis. I recommend you to take your week, and maybe on some days you do intermittent fasting, maybe on some days you go vegan, maybe on some days you consume less calories and maybe you combine it with less carbohydrates or less protein, but you're already doing vegan days, so that might be not the issue. So implement all of these strategies, but at the same time bring variety of foods, bring more nutrients into your diet, and also don't forget to, from time to time, give your body a break from all these restrictions. And forget about keto, forget about counting carbs, forget about counting calories or protein, and just eat all the whole food, all the healthy foods that you care for without restricting anything. That is also beneficial. So the practice and the takeaway of today, guys, is if you want to live long, if you want to improve your eating, your nutrition habits, if you want to improve your energy levels, if you want to improve your nutrition and everything on all levels, then you gotta start implementing restrictions, time of eating, carbohydrates, calories, protein, specifically animal protein. And then you gotta cycle out of it too. Don't just go keto, don't just go vegan for life, don't just do intermittent fasting all the time. No, do it sometimes, most of the time, but then go on days when you don't limit stuff. The only thing, again, I personally don't recommend is eating junk, because that doesn't give your body anything, but gives it more work and more stress and more inflammation. So yeah, on some days, don't restrict calories, don't restrict time, don't restrict protein, don't restrict carbs, but eat still healthy and whole foods. And pick up the book, Ignite Your Metabolism with Intermittent Fasting, Protein Cycling, and Keto. And on a side note, a lot of people following my journey on different social media, also when my clients start following me, people think that the secret of my health, how I look, and my energy levels is because I limit a lot of things, or because I don't eat carbs, or because I do intermittent fasting. But actually, I believe it's all of that. all of that, and also recovery that I do on a regular basis. I do meditation, I do foam rolling, I go out and connect with nature, I sleep well, I connect with people I love and people who inspire me, who we work on amazing projects. So I do all of that. Life is, you cannot simplify your healthy lifestyle to just food or just certain aspects of eating. So don't do that, because that doesn't work. It's a holistic approach, because you are a holistic whole person. So thank you again for tuning in. If you have any questions, if you'd like more details, reach out on any social media where you can find me, or via email. The link to the book is going to be in the show notes for you to pick up, to check it out. And as usual, guys, thank you for tuning in. Oh, by the way, guys, don't forget to share this podcast with one person who you believe is going to benefit a lot, whose life it can change, and who can simply enjoy it just like you do. So thank you guys for tuning in, for listening, for sharing, for all the love and attention. And as usual, till next time, eat better daily.